What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. I hope you're all doing very well this evening, and everyone's managing to stay healthy and look after yourselves. Crikey, what a week! It's one of those crazy ones where it seems to have absolutely flown by, and I don't feel like I've managed to achieve all that much, to be honest. But I hope it's been productive for you wherever you are. Good to see so many of you in on the stream already. When you're getting this, just let me know that it's all coming through okay and that you've got the audio and all that sort of stuff. I'm going to try and stay more on top of that tonight as well. I think hopefully we've got that all dialed in, and I'll try and keep myself and our guest this evening at about the same level so you don't have to mess around too much. Just a few shout outs. Chris Suddle, good evening. First comment in as well, gotta love that, gotta love it, good work. Terrestrial Reconnaissance seems to be a running theme tonight as well. Everyone's saying how rainy it is, so yeah, a big change, from how we were, crikey, a couple of weeks ago. And how typical is it that the weather has had such a kind of polar shift, if you like, figuratively and metaphorically, I suppose, now that a lot of us are out of lockdown and probably could get out and exploit it. But there we go. But yeah, welcome William, Sean, Diamond, El Smeghead, good to see you. Big G, Big George, nice to see you. John Mansfield, Abergavenny, excellent. I hope it's not too rainy down in the valleys. I know there was a flood warning and stuff there when I had to check this morning. Brian Forward, Hasco74, sunny Shropshire. Not seen you in here before, so welcome. TAA. Good evening, Paul Burns. How many Mavic Minis were lost today, Yells Meghead? Yeah, probably a fair few, I'd imagine. It was fairly gusty here, although Brian's saying it wasn't very windy where he was, which is interesting. El Smeghead, thank you. You're a total legend, sir, by the way. You're always like championing when you're on other people's channels. So yeah, please, as El Smeghead says, please don't forget to press that like button right now. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. It really helps us out. And just get that up and running so that more people can see us while we're here. Steve Fuller, welcome. Desmond Donders, hello. Legwork evening. Who else we got in? Cam Wings, hi James. Nice to see you. Norrie in here. GEEKSVANA, Sean from GEEKSVANA. Hello, Sean. We'll see him very shortly when I give him a shout. Chris from Pesky Seagull. Peter Campbell, nice to see you. Not seeing you in for a while. Droopy Dude. Loads of people. This is awesome. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. Ben Clark, welcome in for the first time as well. Norrie from Airview Scotland. Ben, I think we were chatting on Facebook Messenger last night. So hopefully that was all helpful. Chris Caswell, nice to see you. Camera Jabber in here as well. I missed that. Oh, Camera Jabber. Hello. So yeah, welcome everybody to the show. And as always, we're here to, have a chat through a few things, try and see what you want. This week I want a bit of direction on the channel as well and things that you think we need to be doing. And then we've got Sean joining us from GEEKSVANA very shortly, our resident drone journo. And then we've got Tom Pattison, our very own Tom Pattison, Chief Instructor over at UAVHub. I'm sorry the audio's out of sync. There is literally nothing I can do about it, I'm afraid. It does seem to be doing that on some people's feeds, but hopefully you can hear it okay. Yeah, so we got Tom coming on to talk through his journey. Excuse me. We've had a lot of guests on over the last few weeks who have kind of set up their own businesses, who've gone through that system, and that's a really interesting side of the industry. Tom set out to kind of do the same thing, and ended up working for someone else and then coming to working for us. So hopefully that journey will be interesting for you all as well. And I will try and slow down on the talking a little bit, because that's what some people are asking us to do. A couple more shout outs then. Emir from London. Yeah, pretty miserable, eh? Midsace, hi Paul. Nice to see you. Tony Cashin, missed you in there as well. So there we go. Great to see you all in here. So this week, if I'm brutally honest, not a particularly busy one in the aviation world. The kind of general aviation side, I think, has been a lot quieter because people started back a few weeks ago when the weather was good, and as is typical with general aviation, it's been a bit quieter because the weather's not been as good, and a lot of people, as I say, are back to work now, so not able to go flying and kind of exploit all of that. So, we talked last week about the fact that there were a few accidents when people started flying again. And I think I just want to re-emphasize that same message, guys and girls. When you do go out with your drone over the next few weeks, particularly given how windy it is at the moment, please stay safe, okay? Because you might not be as good and as competent as you were when you stopped flying, potentially for some of us back in March. I know I certainly haven't touched the controls of a drone since end of February, beginning of March now, which is pretty crazy, really. It's probably the longest layoff I've had. So, you know, as and when I do get back to flying, it'll be, you know, it will be one of those, I think, where we end up just being very careful, and I'll go out and be sensible in the middle of a field and work my way up over a couple of flights worth into the commercial aviation side. And I think for me, that's where the big things have happened in the news over the last few days in particular. You know, lots of people, unfortunately, and I had got a couple of airline pilots teed up to come on over the next few weeks, but I've spoken to them, and I think we're going to leave that for now because, to be honest, they don't quite know where they sit in terms of their job security. So I don't think it's fair to get them on now. They probably won't paint things in the light which we want them to paint it in. We want to give them the kind of brutal and honest feedback. That's what the channel's all about. But I also want them to kind of, you know, let you know what the actual thoughts are without too much emotion involved. So we're going to leave that for now. We'll come on to that as we move forwards, and hopefully as things pick up. You know, lots of potential job losses, even though somehow, you know, some of the big airlines have managed to secure massive loans from the central bank, which kind of went under the radar, it seems, a little bit. But we'll see what happens there. And I can see Chris, I think it's Birmingham. Is it Birmingham Airport you work at, Chris? Just drop that in the comments for me. Pesky Seagull aerial photography and video, working there, and, you know, working hard doing the aircraft handling and things like that for the cargo side of things, particularly for PPE. So thank you to yourself and everyone else who is making that happen so that we can all stay safe. But there we go. So, you know, it's yeah, interesting times as always. But as I say, the main thing is hopefully that we're all staying safe and looking after each other. So I'm going to give Sean from GEEKSVANA a quick call. Let's get Sean on the mic. Hello.
Hello, sir.
How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
Good. Yes, all good. Thank you. We got video and audio.
Hey.
Like a pro.
I'm just going to turn my Alexa off. Sorry, it's going off.
That's all right. It's no problem at all.
There has to be something, doesn't there?
Always. Yeah, that's it.
How are you?
Not too bad, thank you. Your video has frozen though, it seems.
Oh.
Which is interesting. Whatever you did when you reached over, it's.
I do look quite handsome though.
You do. It's a beautiful screenshot.
Let me just kick it onto something else and then back over, and that might solve the problem.
Yeah, Sean's in sync.
And then that.
Again, the joys of live production.
Am I moving now?
Danny Carter, hey babe. Robbie Mortlock, hi. I'll just say hi to people. No, you're not, mate. You're. I've just got your little icon now. Do you want me to call you back?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, no worries.
I have no idea what's happening there.
2 seconds. I'll speak to you in a sec. There we go. Like I say, the joys of live production. You can test it as many times as you want, but it doesn't always go to plan. So here we go. Let's try again. Uh-oh. Looks like we have a total failure this time. Let me close mine down and go again. Sorry about this, everybody. Please bear with me. We'll get there as soon as we can. You talk amongst yourselves for a sec. No, I can't even call out. Uh-oh. This could be a very, very short live stream tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know why I can't call anybody on Skype. No. This is not cool. Werner getting his own back. Yeah, absolutely. I would say so. No, it looks as though I can't call anybody. Oh, here we go. We've got someone calling in. Video call. Okay, I can see you. Just bear with me a second.
Okay, so excellent.
I think
I might try calling you.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to be able to see me, I'm afraid, because it's come through.
That's okay. I'm okay with that, seeing you. I can see you kind of on the screen anyway, so I know how handsome you are.
That's it. Flattery will get you nowhere. It will get you nowhere.
Oh, really? So I should stop sending you those messages then?
Oh no, please keep sending them. It makes me feel good.
I thought so.
That's it. So we got there in the end. Thank you for calling back.
Indeed.
I don't know how I'm going to be able to call Tom. That's going to be interesting. But there we go. Yeah, how you doing? Good week?
Yeah, not bad. Busy, extremely busy week, both on the channel and off the channel. It's it's just been one of those where I've tried to be a little bit more organised with my content the last couple of weeks and pre-record things and have a bit of a bank so I know where I'm going. And then all these breaking news stories keep coming up and making me produce more videos.
Yeah, that's it.
It's very frustrating. How dare they?
I know, crazy, isn't it? The life of a journo, eh?
Indeed.
Yeah, it's been an interesting one, I think. You know, the kind of announcement happened. Gosh, was it last Friday? It seemed I kind of losing track now because we went live on Thursday and then on Friday the CAA put out the EASA announcement that things have been delayed.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
I was expecting it, I think, but perhaps because I've got my ear close to the ground from a story point of view. I think a lot of us were expecting it, weren't we? Because obviously the November one really was the CAA's reaction to COVID, and I think I was expecting EASA to do the same. And of course, you would then the CAA would of course have to fall in line as well. So I think I expect it to move again for some kind of reason. I find it interesting that we're now going to be going into the new period where we're technically not going to be part of EASA with EASA adopted rules.
Yeah.
But I think that's interesting. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, that's it. And again, if I'm honest, I'm a little bit not concerned about that because that's not the right word to use, I suppose. But I do think more and more that we're in this place where we're trying to align ourselves with the EASA for some reason. And I understand that from a kind of, it makes things a lot easier throughout the whole aviation piece. But actually, at the same time, why are we doing that and sticking to all of that when we've got a framework in place? The CAA are ready to go. They don't even need to abide by the implementing regulation. We can just crack on.
Because it's also, we've kind of already got, in that working document, we've already got all the good bits. And it's already going to mirror enough, isn't it, for us to be able to dovetail in on general aviation and everything. So that's not going to be a problem. So yeah, it's an interesting one because again, the government seem to want a lot of freedom in the unmanned sector with things like the trial on the Isle of Wight and other trials that they've brought forward very quickly. They also seem to want the freedom to be able to innovate, which is great because I think is it something like 20% of all unmanned innovation is currently in the UK in the last 12 months or something. It's some ridiculously high number.
Yeah,
we're definitely punching above our weight on the unmanned innovation side of things.
Big time.
And it would be nice if regulation didn't stop that. But of course, as a hobbyist, I just want the EASA to come in so that I can fly my drone.
Yeah.
With my shiny new certificate. So
that's it. And of course, you've just got your A2 CFC in the last week or so. I think, is that video live yet? Or is that...
Yes, it is. Yes,
okay.
I went live yesterday afternoon. Yes.
Cool. So I've dropped a link to Sean's channel in the chat there. I'll keep dropping that in throughout tonight. But go and check out Sean's kind of walkthrough of the A2 CFC, what he thought of it. And I think I don't want to steal the thunder of that video. So go and check that out on his channel. And
we've had some really good feedback to it already, actually. But
okay.
People that are considering it that like the walkthrough side of things. I think it's good to come from, because obviously I am a hobbyist, so it's a hobbyist going through it rather than someone from the PfCO background or anything going through it to then go to GVC, etc. So yeah, it's got some good feedback. It was a really fun course, I have to say.
That's cool. That's good to hear. I'm glad that you thought that. And yeah, just really frustrating. I mean, crikey, we're like 3 weeks away from what we should have been in terms of implementing it, but. Yeah, I mean, totally out of our hands, and I know again, as you've probably seen, I've taken a bit of flack for that in in
You
the
take flag
comments.
for everything though, and it's all your fault,
I
Matt.
know,
So,
it's all my fault. It's
okay,
all my fault.
you have to start. You have to start accepting this. We're soon going to be bringing anything that happens in general aviation. Now that that's of course been covered on Mr. MPW, that's also your fault as well now.
Everything.
So just please be prepared for those emails
Yeah,
as well.
that's it. I've got my shields up. It's been one of those where I think well, what can I do about it? I'm literally gonna. I think we're gonna change the logo from Mr. MPW to Mr. CAA just to really wind people up. I think that'd be hilarious.
People will be, I told you.
Yeah,
I knew it. I knew it.
I know. So so that's where we're at. But yeah, so regulations delayed, very frustrating. One of the cool things, though, in a way, I think, is that it's pushed that end date back for the transitional provisions, which we didn't think was going to happen. If I'm brutally honest, I thought they were going to keep that the same, and we were just going to get that window shortened and shortened and shortened.
On that front, it was very quiet. So yeah, no, it's really good news to have that full transitional period, because of course, just because they say drone manufacturers please produce drones of these markings doesn't necessarily mean it's always going to happen. We've already seen things like the Skydio being not being sold in Europe, and different Air 2s being sold in the States as to Europe. So it's good that transition period has been extended as well, in order to give the manufacturers enough time to get their hands dirty and really understand what they need to do. I mean, I'm hoping that they're kind of ahead of the game, but you just never know.
Yeah, and again, being brutally honest, we genuinely don't have any factual inside information in this, but I don't think they do have anything in place. I think we're too small a kind of customer base at the moment.
Shocks me as well, actually, because when I looked at the stats as far as how many drones are sold and where, we really aren't something that they're too concerned about.
Yeah, that's it.
Which is scary.
It is, and I think personally, I think a big part of that, and this is one of the most frustrating things that, I mean, it's really important to get across to everyone, I think, is that one of the big frustrations and one of the reasons we were so excited in a way about the new drone regulations isn't because we get to sell new courses and all that sort of stuff. That's what, everyone's like, oh yeah, the earth's flat and you're just doing this because you can make money. It's like, oh my God, do you realise on the channel, actually, I genuinely do put people off, I think, with some of the stuff I say. Like, I get the guys from the office calling me and saying, what have you done, saying the Mavic Air 2 is awful, like we're never going to sell them. And we haven't, right? We've sold virtually none. And we do those things for a reason, to give you the correct info. But it's the same with these regulations, right? Like, we were so excited because actually when you look at them, they're going to bring in some cool new stuff and cool new capabilities, and things like the Skydio. Maybe if you read Cap 722 sections 3.2 and 3, I'm so sad. If you read those, the autonomy side is something that they're embracing, but they're just, it's. I think the big one, sorry, looping back around to my original point, I guess, is that the manufacturers, I don't think, will jump on board yet, because we're adopting it at the very beginning, which is awesome.
Yes.
But they've actually got 2 years. It's when the transitional provisions end is when they've got to stop selling those drones. Are DJI seriously going to stop selling drones now based on something that is at the moment 2.5 years away?
Absolutely.
And they're not, are they?
And also has been moved now twice as well, of course. So they're not going to commit much resource to it until they know it's definitely in place. Matt Preston asked a question, actually. He was saying is he correct in thinking EASA means we can fly anywhere in Europe on holidays, or will this change? Am I right in thinking that was going to be the case, but now we're coming out of EASA, it will be the CAA A2 CFC rather than an EASA CFC? Yeah,
pretty much. And this is one of the really, really frustrating things, if I'm honest, about the whole Brexit thing. And I'm not going to get into that here because it's not appropriate to do so. But from an aviation perspective, it's really frustrating. So the whole point was that there was one framework for every EU member state to operate under. That would mean that, for myself, for example, who's gone off and done work in Denmark, Germany, France, Spain, all these different places, I've had to go out to those places in some cases a month before, do my theory and a practical examination as the boss of the biggest drone training company in the world, which is, quite ironic. Go and do those things, then fly back, wait till I get my paperwork, and then I can go out and operate. The whole point of this is that it was designed so that, yes, as long as you've got the work permits to operate, which again, as an EU member state, wouldn't have been a problem, just carry your passport with you, would have been fine. All you had to do was contact the country that you wanted to operate in and say, this is me, here's my paperwork, I'm going to be flying in this country on these dates. And
exactly,
you'd get an email back, and it was all automated. That's how it's going to work, just as a confirmation, and you get a certificate from them effectively.
Which was great.
Yeah,
so really fantastic.
That's it. Now, yeah, that's it. But I think, and this has been written into the CAP 1789, if you go into it in some detail, the CAA have put a caveat in there that says, because we don't know what the kind of EU aviation deal is going to look like, we don't know what bilateral agreements are going to be in place, we don't know. And they've put a caveat in there that they can charge up to £400 to assess someone from the EU, to assess their GVC or A2 CFC, and say, this is, yes, you can fly, rubber stamp. And if we do that, the other member states are going to do the same.
Yeah,
it's a fact.
Because I still remember making my first video on this a year ago, just over a year ago, when the ASA plans got their final ratification, and I was so excited. I was planning my road trips across France and up into Bruges, and I was going to be droning here and droning there and droning everywhere. So it's a shame. But yes, Matt Preston, it's good to see you as well, by the way. But yes, it does look like there's going to be two different systems, but it depends, I suppose, on how, as you say, the wider Brexit thing goes as well, and how much we're playing ball with the EU after the end of the year. So
yeah, and I think again, this is the reason, and I think it's funny because the audience that we get here is very kind of invested, I suppose, in the channel, right? So they're probably not going to be the kind of people who'll be like, oh, you're Stroker, you're telling us all these things, and it'll generally, I think, be people who are on side with the messaging, and so we get a tainted view in that respect, I suppose.
Yes.
But it's one of those that I think is why we should stay aligned exactly with the ASA regulations, because it will allow that backwards and forwards kind of travel pending and visas pending, because we don't know what that's going to look like.
Yes, and one other story which I'll bring you briefly was an interview that we had to put together quite quickly yesterday. So anyone that's watched it, I apologise for the fact that at one stage the chap's Skype box started moving, and I'm actually during the interview having to reshape it, which was always very professional.
Nice.
But what he said while I was doing that was quite important, so I had to leave it in. But we have another gift from the States. In terms of regulation, a hobbyist flyer was arrested flying his drone over the Nashville protests. It appears he was flying completely legally, and he's actually been charged with trespass over other people's buildings. So it looks like we're about, and it also appears that the police are making the charges, and the DA, etc., are not backing down. So it appears we're actually going to have our first battle about who owns the airspace directly above an office building, a shop over in the States. So it's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, because again, and this is, it is an interesting thing that does keep coming back around. The wheel turns on this in aviation over and over again. In the UK, the CAA kind of control all the airspace. It's generally considered above 2 meters. It's the CAA's jurisdiction. Or 2 meters above the surface or above a building. Now, in America, though, there are certain states, and this is the other thing, isn't it? There are different states have different laws and interpretations.
Well, they try to, yes. Yeah, because obviously, FAA being federal, it is 100% airspace is airspace, whether it's a centimetre above or anything. But I think there's about 4 states at the moment trying to bring in statewide regulations, and I think that many people are waiting for the FAA to step in and say, don't be silly, which is certainly what happened in the case in Michigan. That was thrown out because of obviously federal overshot the local municipality rules, which was great to see. But yes, this is another one, and it's also an interesting one because it's the first story of that type that I've been directly involved in, as in reporting and getting to know the people involved, where the pilot's a hobbyist. So he doesn't have that backup of being Part 107 and having that knowledge and those qualifications to put forward. So his whole system when he does set up and fly is of course so much more simple. It's also, interestingly, the first story I've reported on of this type where AirSense was actually being used on the drone.
Yeah.
Because of course the Air 2 in America has that on there, the ADS-B.
Yes.
So he was actually able to, and obviously the data is recorded where helicopters were at the time of him flying, etc. So there's a few more moving parts which I think are going to come into play. But it's an interesting story, and as it always is, of course. And I hope it works out well for him, because obviously even though it's trespass, it is criminal. So it is, it is a serious thing in his life.
Yeah, crikey.
He's got a court date in just 15 days. So yeah.
They don't mess around, the American criminal justice system, right? It's pretty savage.
Indeed. Yeah, indeed.
Interesting. No, that's really cool. Again, it's one of those that I hope doesn't because it does seem as though the EASA regs and what we're implemented in terms of the CAA is starting to trickle down a little bit from the FAA, it seems. And I do hope that we stick to the kind of crown version of the air navigation order, for example, in terms of it affects all aircraft. And I hope that we aren't taken out of that pot as unmanned aviators. I don't think we will, because that isn't how it works. But
no, indeed. Although as you were saying at the beginning, with regards to future guests and things from general aviation, we just don't know at this stage what general aviation will look like in 5 years' time. It's going to look different. Yeah. And of course we don't know how that will affect everybody. But on a brighter note, we are able to fly our drones again out of lockdown. Sorry if we're being a little bit too serious for everybody.
That's it. No, I think it's all good. And it's important, like we say, this is why you and I have these conversations on the channel, right? Because it's important that I think everyone is made aware of the other things that are going on, the other moving parts, the other stories around the kind of world, because they could have a trickle-down impact on us, particularly the AirSense thing, that ultimately I guess gave away where the guy is, everything that's going on. They've now got the evidence that they need to say he was here at this height, at this speed, doing this, and there's no way around it. So it's quite interesting
Indeed.
But there we go. I've just seen a couple come in. One about paragliding. How do I feel about the lack of regulation in regards to paragliding and parasending compared to droning? We have paragliding over our village almost constantly, crossing a dual carriageway. Now, this is a bit of a bone of contention of mine, because when you actually look at it, paragliders and paramotorists, there's actually very, very little regulation, if any, really. They just have to abide by the ANO. Whatever that means, because there's no articles in there that really apply to them. So as long as they avoid controlled airspace, they can pretty much do whatever they want, it seems. And that's great, because from a sport perspective, there are lots of people out there who would say, and do say, drones are overregulated, let's drop the regulation. But I think the issue then becomes the paragliding thing. If you look at the statistics of how many paragliders unfortunately have serious accidents, a lot of them fatal quite often. I think there were 2 fatal last week that I saw. One chap flew into high voltage lines next to his house and was killed. There was an elderly chap, 77-year-old in Scotland, who flew his paramotor straight into a hill. And you think, crikey. And there was actually a chap who took off from the back of our house. There's fields kind of over the back of our house, and he started flying from there on a regular basis. And he took off yesterday on a day when I'm like, I wouldn't be flying a Cessna today, dude.
Yeah. What are you doing in that?
Yeah, big time. And we went and chatted to him a couple of weeks ago, and he's like, yeah, I've had, this is my 4th flight. I've bought all the kit and I've watched the internet. And you're like, what are you doing? What are you doing? So yeah, there's 2 sides to this, as there is, coming back to kind of Legwork's question. Personally, as an aviator, I think it's really bad that it's so deregulated. That being said, I really want to get into paragliding and paramotoring, so I'm kind of glad that it's not regulated, because I could just go and buy the kit and go fly. But that, at the same time, I will go and do a training course.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's an interesting one. It causes a lot of controversy, and I think, as with most of these things, there is someone in that community who has the ear of the regulator and the legislators, because it comes up all the time in the CAA forums, and they are not interested at all.
Yeah, it's never pursued, is it?
No.
You almost feel like perhaps the board of the CAA are all paragliders.
Exactly.
Not suggesting that would make them. That was a joke, Mr. CAA.
Yeah,
before
Mr.
you
CAA.
come and watch all my drone footage with a fine-tooth comb.
Yeah.
But it's almost as if, of course, it would never be that way, but. Yes,
that's it. So I don't know is the answer legwork. It's a big thing and it's a running theme. I don't think it'll ever get in the UK regulated, if I'm honest, because it hasn't yet, and no, there doesn't seem to be the appetite to. But there we go.
Absolutely.
There we are, mate. Well, thank you ever so much.
No problem.
Please go and give Sean a follow. And go and follow the channel. It all seems to be going very well. There's lots of interesting stuff on there, mate. So thank you for joining us. And
no problem at all.
You'll be live again next Thursday.
Next Thursday, yes.
Cool. Have you got Liv on next Thursday?
Probably.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Okay.
I actually haven't actually. It's very rare that I'm going into the week before a show. I actually don't know what we're doing next week, so it's that will hopefully be a good thing, because it keeps me on my toes to come up with some good content. So.
Nice. That's cool. I like. Do it. That's why I put that 1 minute 45 countdown timer on now, so it gives me like a minute and 45 to work out what I'm going to talk about. That's
now I know that's not true.
That's just how I roll. Well, I don't know. If you spent time with me, you'd realise it's.
Oh really?
Yeah. Normally my public speaking is made up whilst I'm speaking. So
this is the guy that's going to help me get over my fear of flying by taking me in an aeroplane.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. You got to be good to be Gash.
I haven't heard that for a while.
That's it.
Have a great rest of the show.
Cheers, mate. I'll catch you soon.
See
Thank you, Sean.
Week.
See you in a bit, mate.
Cheers.
Bye. There we go. So please go over, give Sean a like. Always good to catch up with him. We are going to now try and catch Tom Pattison. I'm going to try and give him a call. And if that doesn't work, he's going to give me a call. In fact, Tom, can I just ask that you give me a shout, mate, whenever you get a chance? I hope you are you're watching this still. And I'll wait till Tom calls and then we'll go from there. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. The regulation side, I can see people saying like, why should we do the A2 CFC now? Because you're not going to be able to use it for a while. There will be a sec, see if I can answer this. There we go. Right, hopefully we get Tom's picture up. Oh, yes. Excellent. I'll come to you in a second, Tom. Sorry, I'll just finish off on this a little bit. It's a difficult one. You can't do anything commercially with a drone unless you have a PfCO until the new regulations start. So if you do want to do something this summer, if you want to get up and running and start making money from your drone, then the only route in at the moment is to do the GVC, get your PfCO, and then you've got kind of 6 months of flying. If you don't want to do that and you want to wait, then it's a case of wait until the new regulations start. You then don't need any kind of qualification at all necessarily, but you will need to... The whole point then of getting that A2 CFC is to be able to fly closer to uninvolved people and things like that, and inside congested areas. So that's what it is all about. So without further ado, let's roll over and have a chat to Tom. Tom, you're live. You know you can't see me, can you? Which is a little bit...
at this moment, but how you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. A little bit disconcerting, I'm sorry, but you are up on the screen and you are live. And we're going to chat for like 20 minutes or so. About your journey. So for those who don't know, Tom is the chief instructor at the other company that I own. So Mr. MPW is a media company in its own right. We also have UAVHub, which is the kind of the biggest training school in the world. And Tom is our chief instructor. So Tom kind of runs all of our training for us and manages and monitors all of that. So a lot of people here in the chat today have probably met Tom at some point along their journey. But what a lot of people don't know is that actually, Tom, you've done a lot of stuff in the past before you even joined us in terms of model flying and all that sort of stuff, which is really interesting, I think, for people to see that journey as it is for everybody. So over to you, mate. How did you kind of get into the model flying side of things, and then ultimately end up getting your PfCO? And who did you train with?
Yeah, so it was all sort of done kind of by accident, I suppose. Really, it was probably a good sort of 7 or 8 years ago now. I just finished university and had a bit of spare time on my hands, as you do. And I was watching YouTube, as obviously we all do. And I was watching this really good YouTube channel called Smarter Every Day, and they had lots of different sort of subjects. And this particular one that I watched was all about helicopters. And I hadn't really given them much thought, really. And, I found them really interesting. They were going into how they worked and all the different sort of physical sort of things that they had to deal with as they were flying. And they were using this chap who was a very skilled model helicopter pilot, and they were flying helicopters with GoPros on the back to see the swash plate and all the mechanics. And I thought, wow, that's awesome. And I suddenly thought to myself, why don't I, start to look into this myself? And that's kind of what started it all, really. I bought a really small little cheap coaxial helicopter, so with 2 main rotor blades, so the easiest way to start, I guess, really. And that was about 40 quid off eBay, I remember. And I was quite surprised at how difficult it was when I first flew it. It was hitting the ceilings, hitting the walls and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, God, what have I started here? But I persevered because I found it really interesting, and was watching the YouTube channel, obviously, as well, alongside. And, it was it stemmed from there, really. I then moved on to a slightly larger helicopter, which was a little miniature collective pitch one, so a little bit more even harder to fly actually than the sort of the coaxial one, but that enabled me to then fly outside, and I could start to do a few little tricks as well, which was quite exciting to see. If you haven't watched any helicopter sort of pilots who can do very good sort of flying and maneuvers and tricks, a little bit like the people you've had on recently actually, it's pretty incredible to watch, and to get that good, you've got to, I don't know, fly 8 hours a day for 3 or 4 years, I should think, to get anywhere near that good. But I just love the sort of the technical side of it, but also sort of the accomplishment from going out, flying around, and doing a whole battery without crashing. It was amazing. So that's always a bonus. And then again, I moved on to a slightly bigger helicopter, and then just kind of then started to think, where am I going with this? Am I going to go off and start being a sort of a professional pilot potentially with it, or what else can I do? And that was when drones was sort of starting to become a bit more known about, I guess, really, back when the Phantom 1 existed. I then went that route instead, because I thought, again, the mechanical side of things is very interesting, but I like the whole can it fly itself type of mentality too. So that was where drones was sort of starting to come into the mix, and sort of taught myself that side of things too, really. So I bought a sort of a DJI clone. It was an F450, a little sort of flame wheel thing they called it, a long time ago, and it was running some open source software as well. So I had to sort of learn all of that again using YouTube and the internet and stuff like that, and eventually got it to fly after about 3 or 4 crash test flights, which was again always the way it was going to go. But the amazing thing was with a drone was that it would sit there in front of you and hover on its own, and that was unheard of with a helicopter. As soon as you looked at the controller a bit strangely, it would crash. So having this aircraft in front of you just flying, not perfectly, but it was there and it was flying itself. And, that obviously then opened itself up to putting a camera on board and then putting a gimbal on the aircraft, and that made the aircraft too heavy. So I had to buy a bigger drone to lift the gimbal and the camera, and, it sort of snowballed and took all my money and time. But eventually I had a relatively good aircraft that was capable, and I actually went through the Prince's Trust, actually,
cool.
to start a business, to get the money to then go off and do the PfCO, which back then was almost £2,000, so obviously a huge amount of money. And they lent me the money. I did the Prince's Trust, and obviously got my qualification, and it kind of stemmed from there. And then I was sort of trying to do my own work. That was a little bit harder than I might have thought, I suppose, and that's when I sat down and thought, right, I'm going to contact all the drone aerial photography companies in the UK today, and I emailed about 20 companies. Probably got about 5 replies. 2 of them were very positive. I went and met some chap who was doing aerial filming with an actual model helicopter, which was pretty eye-opening. And then there was another company that I went to, and that was actually the company I got a job with in the end. So that was kind of how that started. And then I was sort of thrown in at the deep end with, £60,000 drones and Alexa mini cameras and film sets and stuff like that. So it was pretty sort of a wild ride, I suppose, really, up until then, I guess. So that's kind of where I got to, and that's how it all happened, I suppose.
Yeah, nice. Thanks, mate. The again, really interesting, I think, for those people who are watching, that everybody who we've had on so far who has gone on to be successful I would say, in this, has in this industry has ultimately come from a kind of model flying background, if you like, or if they haven't come from that background, they've picked it up along the way, and it's become a big part of their lives. It's become something that they then go and do at the weekend. It's become, something that they go and practice and practice and practice at doing. All of us, I'd say, at the top of the industry, that is ultimately where we've come from, isn't it? That's it. It's the only way to get those skills up that I think.
It's about the muscle memory, and that's almost the downside of kind of these models that we're seeing now. They're so easy to fly that you can get away with 90% of your flying, without actually having to have a huge amount of skill, which, I don't want to, again, sort of tread on anyone's toes saying that, but you can do a lot with these aircraft at the moment, and you don't have to have a huge amount of muscle memory until the technology lets you down, and that's when you need it. And that's most of the time when I've been instructing or watching people, that's when accidents happen. The technology lets you down. They panic. In 2 seconds, you've had an accident, and that's all it takes.
Yeah, that's it. And it's funny, isn't it? Because I was bizarrely, I was there on one of our examinations where someone did have a fairly spectacular crash, and it was again, the tech kind of letting them down. They hadn't got that muscle memory because they hadn't been out and practiced. They practiced more than enough, I would say, to do what they needed to do to a degree. But when it went wrong, and people don't believe us, right, when we're telling them that it's all about practicing and making it hard for yourself, so that when it is easy, so when it does go wrong, you're all over it. And
because that's what you paid for at the end of the day, really. It's not doing that nice simple shot a few times. It's, can you do this without GPS, or can you do this and then something happens and you still survive and land the aircraft? That's, I think, what you're normally paid for, really, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. And it's the same in the airlines. Again, having done some of that kind of work in my past lives, it's you're sat there managing a computer. A lot of the time you're paid the big bucks to make the right decisions when stuff goes wrong. Same in the military. We go out every single time we fly at low level, medium level, it doesn't matter. There's always training going on, and generally it never happens, right? Like, the number of times aircraft have actually been shot and it's affected the aircraft is like, you could count them on one hand in the rotary world. But then when it does happen, you're able to deal with it. So
Yeah.
So very interesting. What? So you joined a company that were getting quite a lot of work in. What kind of big titles, if you like, did you go and do? And it's funny because I saw one of them on Sky earlier on. I was like, how weird! I've got Tom on tonight, and I know he did that show. So
really, well, there were a few, I suppose. Some of them, it's funny. What I didn't realise is a lot of films get shot and they don't sometimes ever make it to cinema, or something happens and you don't necessarily see them. So there have been a few titles that obviously sort of went under the radar, I think. But I did a couple. I did Patient Zero. That was a film, I think, quite a long time ago now, with one of the Doctor Who's in it. So I did a little bit on that. Another film that came out was She Who Gives Gifts, I think is what they actually changed the title to in the end, and that's when I actually went to Chernobyl and we did some filming there for that. That was the landscape of sort of London after an apocalypse type of thing. So
Nice.
I went to Chernobyl, which was mental.
Yeah.
Which was quite good. Did Snow White and the Huntsman as well. There was a little bit on that. That was quite intense overall. There was like a battle scene with all the horses and stuff like that. So that was pretty extreme. I remember that because we spent 8 hours literally sitting around doing nothing at all. We had to be there at 6 a.m. But of course our shot was put off right till about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And so we literally were there from 6 till 5 doing absolutely nothing. And then the last 2 hours were the most intense hours of my whole life.
Yeah, that's it.
Again, sod's law, we checked all the aircraft and everything was fine. And then for some reason, we were getting a compass error on this big aircraft that we were using. And the one, the
Well,
Halo.
mate, I've had that compass error on that aeroplane as well.
Yeah.
The bloody thing.
And so that didn't let me flick into GPS. So I had to do the most intense shot of my life over 100 horsemen in ATI mode. So that was great. So that's when you do it, every money definitely there. And then I did a few other little bits like location. That was good. And there was another series on Sky called Agatha Raisin.
That's the one I saw today.
The one, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was quite a good series actually, and that was quite good fun. And Yeah, that was with a slightly smaller aircraft, the Inspire, which made it a little bit easier. And again, I think that was the Halo, or was it the Alta? I can't. No, probably the Halo again, actually. Yeah. So, yeah, and then an advert for David Beckham as well, but that for some reason never made it onto air, or I can't find it anyway. Oh. So I think it was on someone's Instagram that I saw the clip that I was flying. So that was quite exciting too. So yeah, there's been a few actually. So it's quite nice to reminisce actually.
Yeah, that's it. Quite, and. Yeah, I think it's important that we do sometimes because you forget that you've done so much. It's funny what you said, the whole kind of sitting around waiting for 8 hours and the 2 minutes thing. That was exactly what I said when it came down to me doing all the footage for the America's Cup out in Bermuda. It was, there were very 14-hour days, but we were out on the water for kind of 6 hours at a time, and I'd say it was 6 hours of bobbing up and down on the water, waiting for the boats to come round, interdispersed with 60 seconds of absolute sheer terror. Just hoping that I didn't mess anything up and nothing went wrong with the aeroplane. That was the most scary thing, was that not me doing something wrong, but
you got a bit of a twitch going and stuff. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's it. Someone's saying, apart from horses and Atty, what was your favourite shoot?
What was my favourite one? I suppose it was. It was probably the David Beckham shoot, actually, purely because it was actually with someone I recognised. Actually, which makes a change. A lot of celebrities, they go over my head and I'm like, oh, that's who it was. But yeah, there was a surreal moment, I suppose, where we had to be on location, and it was like a river. And a waterfall, so we had to sort of fly the drone down the river and then up the waterfall, sort of with the camera pointing down. And David Beckham was sort of in the water, with his top off, with his perfume or whatever he's got, and sort of showing it off to the camera. And interestingly, they had two other people there who were the David Beckham lookalikes. So there were 3 David Beckhams in a row, which was really weird, and they all looked pretty lifelike. And obviously, one was real. But the most surreal moment, I suppose, was when I was walking down, because I was going to scope out the area to make sure, I could fly down there and there was enough space. And I was on my own. No one else was down by the river. And David Beckham was walking back the other way. And we kind of just sort of went, all right, as we went past each other. And that was it. That was David Beckham. That was really weird. So, yeah, just little moments like that, actually, which make you sort of think, this is madness. If the flying goes perfectly today, this is really good.
Yeah.
This will be
That's it. I think my weirdest one, similar moment to that, was with Hugh Jackman. And I was sat on a bench in a kind of churchyard, taking a couple of minutes and having a coffee, and he just came and sat on the bench next to me, and it was like, all right, yeah, all right, are you Mr. Jackman?
Yeah.
Hugh, I don't know what it is, like, oh god. And I was like, catch you later, and off you go. It's just it's quite funny, isn't it, like what you do? But there we go.
Funny.
Yeah. So, mate, obviously now into the you came out of that. We rescued you from that crazy life of living life on the road to put you on the road and send you around places doing exams and stuff. What what are the big takeaways? Because I can see there's we've got George Wrigley, Big G, in here saying he's a little bit concerned about the OE. I think from what I could see, so that's the flight test for the kind of uninitiated that you do with us. We call it an OE, an operational assessment. And he's put, at Tom Pattison, I'm nervous about doing my OE assessment, but mainly having the paperwork in order, etc. What is it from your perspective? Because you've probably done more of these than anybody now, the examinations. What is it that you see kind of people trip up on the most in terms of paperwork? And what kind of 3 top tips, if you like, for the flying side of things? Just to kind of put you on the spot completely, because you didn't know I was going to ask you this.
I'll just get my notes that I haven't prepared.
That's it.
A bit like yourself, actually, I guess.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so I would say, I think the main thing that people struggle with is just them not being kind of sure of themselves to start with, I think, because 9 times out of 10, people will turn up and they'll say, oh, I'm a bit worried about this, that, and the other. And actually, by the end of it, I was like, oh, if you hadn't have told me that, I wouldn't have known that you were struggling. Actually, what you have done is actually fine. And as long as you follow the paperwork, you fill it in, and you understand the software that enables you to work out the airspace and work out the NOTAMs and stuff like that, and just practice it. That's the hard thing. I think a lot of people know how to do it, but the first time they almost have another go is when they actually turn up to do the flight test. And obviously, as we know, it's all about practice. Anything is about practice. You know, if you want to be good at something, all you have to do is just do it a lot, and then eventually you will be good at it. And that's really one of the things. So I think that's it really. It's just, you know, maybe having a dry run at that side of things, and where you're stuck, you know, maybe try and find a YouTube video to sort of teach you it, because that's what I normally do. If I can't do something, I'm like, oh, bound to be a YouTube video or a forum thread or something on it, and normally there is, and that normally sorts you out. And you know, once you filled it in, that's the beauty of the paperwork. You know, you've kind of done it because it's all filled in. That's the idea, I suppose. Yeah. And what are the three? What was it again? What is the
three top tips for, like, the three things that, not that we have many people that trip up, right? But the three things that you would say to people to practice in terms of flying and manoeuvres before they turn up, like things you might have to coach them through.
I think the big one for me is knowing the system, because we have a lot of people who turn up, and especially in Oxford, they'll have to unlock the aircraft because obviously it's controlled airspace, and they don't really know how to do it. And, you know, they might have gone through the videos that we've provided, obviously, because we have given them a lot of help with that, and they're still just a little bit rusty with the menu systems and stuff like that. And obviously I'm there and I can give a bit of help because obviously I've done it before. But I say to people then, look, if I was a client, I'd have no idea about any of these systems, and would we have taken off today? You know, potentially not. So again, it's just knowing the system, and the only way to know the system is to work your way through all the menus, you know, change the settings, and just sort of be aware of what you can change and what you might need to change, you know, in the spare of the moment. If the client says, oh, can you just tweak that, or can you do this, can you do that? You know, it's understanding, yeah, I know where that is in the menu, and you can just go straight to it, as opposed to, you know, 30 seconds or a minute's worth of silence while people are going through tapping, you know, and stuff like that. So that's probably one of the only things that I think, you know, you could have got better at that by just spending a bit more time doing it. You know, if I can do it, I'm sure you can as well. That's probably one of the most things that I notice the most, I suppose, on a flight test as well. And then with regards to the flying, it's really hard because nowadays, you know, most of the flight tests that we do are in GPS. So you can effectively just push the aircraft around the sky and just turn with the left stick, and you can pretty much, you know, get away with a fairly nice oval and figure 8 and stuff like that. But again, I suppose it's just sort of smoothness. The biggest thing that I see is people moving the sticks, you know, left, right, and it's all about being very sensitive. And obviously, flying helicopters, you had to be, you know, millimeter was all you needed really with the control sticks. But again, because these aircraft that you can fly now are relatively easy and they are forgiving, you almost can get away with being a little bit ham-fisted. But again, that will show up on the footage later on, and it just won't look very good. You know, there'll be your movements, and the aircraft will be at aggressive angles, and, you know, it just prefers to be nice and flat and nice and smooth. And again, it's just practice, really. So there's a running theme.
Yeah, there really is. That's it. I was going to say it's
practicing, and I think people get to a stage and they think, okay, yeah, I can just about do it, and they, you know, go and do the flight test, and they do just about pass. But it would just be nice to see, you know, and I do, don't get me wrong, you know, I don't want to say that everyone does this, because it's not. I just notice a few, you know, sort of people who could have maybe put a little bit more practice in, or a few more hours into, you know, sort of the preparation, I guess, maybe too. And there's a third, I don't know if there is a third one. That's, can we say good ones?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, people are saying it right. Stick time is king. Get there an hour before, make sure everything's unlocked, which again I think comes down to, as you said, knowing your system before you turn up and fly. But there we go. Mate, I know you want to shoot off, so thank you ever so much for joining us. We've hit that. Right. You're going to turn into a pumpkin in the next kind of 10 seconds, so that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Probably will do,
Yeah, that's it. But no, thank you ever so much. It's very much appreciated. Nice to kind of get a bit of background for everybody, and yeah, thank you for spending your time on an evening when you really don't have to.
No, that's not. Probably see a few people soon, I guess.
That's it, yeah, hopefully so. And I'm going to stick around and say a few bits and pieces. But yeah, thank you very much, Tom. And I will no doubt speak to you tomorrow at some point.
Probably will.
Cheers, mate. See you soon. Bye-bye. There we go. So massive thanks to Tom for joining us. Like I say, he's had a busy day today as well. Been teaching and going through kind of theory examinations. So for him to come on and chat to us and go through those things, because a lot of you were asking those questions, is really important. Just want to give a massive shout out to Danny Carter. Thank you ever so much for giving us the fist bump super sticker. Very, very much appreciated, sir. And I think someone has just dropped another couple of pounds in, but it isn't letting me connect to my chat for some reason. So hopefully that comes back up again in a second. And hopefully I'm still live and you can all see me, because that would be really, really disappointing if it isn't. Let me just try and see if I can load this up and see. Nope. Why is it not working? 2 seconds. Right. Ooh, here we go. Are we back in? Are we back in? Elsmeghead, thank you ever so much for your super sticker, sir, or your super chat. £2 in from Elsmeghead. Very much appreciated. So it looks like we're all back up and running again. Any pinchers on here? So anyone who's a pincher, gives it a bit of this. We don't have pinchers. We don't have pinchers on the channel. We have thumb operators. Thank you. If you pinch with me, you get a slap. That's the deal. Norrie from Airview Scotland. Anyone been down and sat that OE from Scotland lit yet? Yes, we've had lots of people come down, and it's no messing. It's no problem at all. We do our very best to look after you. Richard Clark asking what manoeuvres should be practiced. I think that's for the flight assessment. Inside the resource library, if you are a UAVHub candidate, there is an entire walkthrough video of the flight test itself, where we show you all the manoeuvres that you're going to have to do. We show you how to do them, and literally kind of walk you through step by step the whole of the examination, so that by the time you come to do it, it shouldn't be new to you. So yeah, hopefully that keeps that all sorted. I go for hybrid for FPV, J-Ren says, but thumb for DJI, and I do get that actually. I get that a little bit. I understand it. I see where you're coming from. Right, Elsmeghead. Elsmeghead. I'm glad you put a couple of quid in, because it turns out you're a pincher, which is a bit of a shame. But there we go. Yeah, thank you ever so much. We are rapidly approaching 5,000 subscribers on the channel, and I can't thank you guys and girls enough for your support. It's really very much appreciated. You can't probably understand how much that means to us. We never thought it would get to this, but it looks as though on the current rates we're going to end up in a place where we're going to end up probably hitting 5,000 in the next couple of days, which is again absolutely incredible. So please keep spreading the word about the channel if that's, you know, something that you're willing to do for us. When we get to 5,000, we're going to be doing a big giveaway. We're going to be giving away a £699 package, which will be the GVC and the A2 CFC combined, kindly kind of donated over from the UAVHub side of things. So stick around for the channel over the next few days. Hopefully, if we get to, well, when we get to 5,000, we'll be able to we'll put a video up that will show you how to apply to be part of the competition, if you like, to win that package, which is pretty epic. And you know, like I say, it's us trying to give something back to help you all out. On that though, I'd be really interested to know, just before we kind of sign off, I'm a pincher, I'm taking my £2 back then, Elsmeghead. Oh dear. My chat for some reason is way behind, but there we go. Yeah, I'd be really interested to know, and if you stuck around, thank you for that. I'd want to know what you want to see from the channel, and what would be most interesting for you, because we're in a place now where I'm going pretty much full time with this. I've stepped away from the UAVHub side of things almost completely now. I certainly have over the last kind of 8 weeks or so. So on that, I can see people getting a little bit frustrated with me coming out with these kind of 4 or 5 minute pieces where I go through the regulations. Is that working for you all? Is it not working for you all? Would you prefer me to do, you know, an hour-long thing where we go through everything? Would you prefer me to go back to doing that and answering your questions directly at 12 o'clock on a Friday lunchtime like I used to do, and then we can keep the aviation show open to bring guests in and stuff like that? You know, we're doing this for you, as a community to all help each other out. You know, if you're not on the Discord, join the Discord server, and we can kind of carry on this this side of thing, this conversation over there. But like I say, I'm doing it for you. You know, yes, I suppose I get something out of it as well. But I know people are, I think, getting frustrated with the waffle that I'm doing. There is a bit of a reason behind that. I'm a waffler anyway, but there is a reason behind it. And if I'm honest, if I'm being brutally honest with those of you who stayed around, the waffle is very important on the YouTube channel, because you get what you're after, hopefully, in the kind of 5 or 6 minutes. But if I make those a 45-second video, YouTube will never pick that up and show it to you. It'll never pick it up and show it to people. So it's a fine balance, you know, of trying to build a community and trying to get that information across to you in a way that shows you a little bit of my personality, because I am not the man from the CAA in terms of how I come across like that. Like, I like doing the whole putting the cap on backwards and being an arsehole thing, or putting the stupid glasses on and being the geek, right? So that's kind of a bit more me, and I'm hoping to bring that in. But yeah, what we're gonna do is set up a UAVHub channel where we do 1-minute videos about the regulations, I think, is the way we're going to go. The channel will be a little bit more conversational, but we are, now I'm doing it full time, over the next couple of weeks going to move into doing curated content. So if everyone's happy, what we'll probably do is the UAVHub channel will be your bite-sized stuff. It'll be quick fire answers to questions. The stuff on the channel will probably be more conversational. It'll be going out and flying a drone in terms of like, you know, these are the 10 things I recommend when I fly them, or 10 things I do when I fly an Inspire 2 to get a cinematic shot. The, you know, 5 ways to avoid having a crash with your Mavic Mini, that kind of thing. And they will be out in the field doing some flying, because I think from what I can gather, you guys and girls want a bit of that as well. But again, please just let us know. I'm here and I'm doing it for you, to help you learn, build and grow. That was why we started this in the first place. And there we go. And yeah, looks like people are wanting potentially the so short breaking news updates are good. We can share those, that's cool, and they seem to be working well, liking the small bite-sized stuff. So yeah, I will definitely move those over to the UAVHub side of things. I'll do the flying tips and the general aviation and my journey to getting airborne again. There's some cool news on that I've shared with a couple of people in the audience here. My journey to getting flying again and buy my own aeroplane and all that sort of stuff, I'll keep on the channel here. We'll do this on a Thursday, and I think, yeah, by the looks of things, the Friday lunchtime question and answer sessions will be something that we'll probably look to come back once things start to return back to normal. So there we go. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you ever so much for joining us tonight. It's very much appreciated. I hope you managed to get out, and fingers crossed the weather gets a little bit better. And again, would you like to see things like weather training, you know, for aviation, not just for drones? Is that something you'd be interested in? You know, we got thunderstorms potentially coming on Saturday, for example. Like, would you want to know how thunderstorms are formed from an aviation perspective and all that sort of stuff? Because I can do that. That's not a problem. And we can have a time for that. So anyway, there we go. Rambling on. But yeah, thank you ever so much. Fly safe if you get a chance to over this week. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Please give us a like. Spread the news. Go and follow Sean over at GEEKSVANA. I'll drop his information in the chat right now. And I look forward to catching you all next week. So there we go. Stay safe, everyone. Fly safe. And blue skies.